All right, well, as we mentioned, Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake has been facing criticism for how her office responded to the violence. She defended the city's response today.
I will say that, I wish I could be 3 different places at once. Everybody knows there's an operational response that had to be done. The situation evolved very quickly and required my direct attention, and I gave it my direct attention. And when we were in a space where I could come and give a briefing, I did that. I understand that, when you have a 24-hour news cycle, it's never soon enough. But I can't shirk my responsibilities to do the work of being mayor and responding and managing the crisis as it unfolds. Always going to be armchair quarterbacks that have never sat in my seat, that see things differently. But this isn't the first emergency that I've had to deal with, and I know that you have to put in the work and manage the crisis on the ground, and that's what we're doing.
Michael Fletcher is a Washington Post reporter and has lived in Baltimore for more than 30 years. He's written a column today called What You Really Need to Know About Baltimore from a reporter who's lived there for over 30 years. And he joins us now on the phone. Michael, thanks for being with us.
Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
we can.
Totally.
Michael, the first line of your article says, quote, "It was only a matter of time before Baltimore exploded," unquote. Can you tell us why you feel that way?
Yeah, because the city has been such a study in contrast that there are huge swaths of the city that are really disconnected from the rest of the city and really from the state and from sort of broader life, if you will. There's such entrenched poverty, level of drug addiction, things of that nature that sort of exist side by side with kind of the larger city of Baltimore. So you have these areas, and Freddie Gray was from one of those neighborhoods, Sandtown, Winchester, where the murder rate is higher, the dropout rate is higher, name statistic, and the situation is worse. And that's just a tough situation to have exist, long term. And when you have that, the police come into those areas with a different attitude than they go to many, say, middle-class neighborhoods. They're seeing, I think, more as an occupying force and a force that, and I think in their minds, trying to keep order in a very difficult situation. So I think you sort of have this tinderbox that results from that.
Michael, I'm curious. I've gotten into some sort of heated conversations with people about how to characterize what we saw happening last night in Baltimore. People calling the, if you want to call them, even taking a dispute whether we're looking at revolutionaries or looters or thugs. But you have a much more intimate knowledge of the people that live in this community. When you watched what was happening last night, what did you see?
Well, I saw a couple of things unfold. First, the thing I saw in the afternoon, it was school kids coming out of a high school across from Mondawmin Mall, from Douglas High School, and essentially high schoolers engaging the police. I don't think these were, as the president said, I don't think these were protesters. I think these were kids, in some cases, probably looking for some excitement. Others who probably feel a bit aggrieved. But these were essentially kids that went out there and began throwing rocks at police and that attempted to go into the mall, but the police were deployed there, and then later made their way about not even a mile away to the CVS that we all saw looted and burned on television. So that was that. But as the evening progressed, you saw more adults coming out. There were reports of people in cars and SUVs pulling up to stores to steal what they could steal and that sort of thing. And I think you had opportunists. So these were, it was sparked by Freddie Gray, but these are not protesters, I think, for the most part. These were people looking to take advantage of a ripe opportunity.
Michael, the president, in his comments he just recently made, called what we saw last night counterproductive, and he basically said that we are losing sight of what it is that Baltimore had been protesting peacefully for the last 2 weeks, which is this death of Mr. Freddie Gray. What are you hearing from your sources, from your reporting, as to exactly why it has taken the police this long to come out with a report, an exact report as to what happened to him those 30 minutes in that van?
Yeah, that's still a mystery to me as well. I haven't been working this story, since it unfolded. But I've been reading, I think, what many people have read, and I think even the city leadership is frustrated. Yeah, and you get into that kind of code of silence that police have often, and so we don't know what happened. I think we'll know shortly. I think the mayor and police chief had promised a report by, I believe, May 1st. I don't know how conclusive it's going to be, but I think they're dealing with that wall of silence and trying to break through that. Because, I must add, because a lot of police, as much as citizens feel aggrieved, some police do as well. I think they feel, in some cases, undervalued and overly criticized, because they feel like they have a tough job that people don't recognize.
But Michael, I want to, you've lived in Baltimore this entire time, and I'm just curious, there are reports that, I'm trying to get a sense from you as a local, there are reports that the police and the government there too often in the past have colluded to where citizens have been hurt by the police. Generally speaking, charges are dropped against the police. It seems as if, there's this, not just this wall of blue, but that the fact that you cannot indict a police officer when you have instances of police brutality like that in Baltimore, which is very difficult to get them indicted. Is that true?
I think that's clear. Yeah, that's clearly the case here in Baltimore, and I would add to that elsewhere in the country. And in Baltimore, that's exacerbated by the situation I described earlier, where you kind of have the city within a city, where you have, again, huge swaths of this town that are really enmeshed in dire poverty and deep social ills, and where the cops are really seen as an occupying force when they're there. You have open-air drug markets that police will come in and do sweeps, and when they do that, they often round up innocent people as well as people involved in the drug trade. So you have this kind of ongoing kind of cat and mouse thing with the police in certain neighborhoods, and I think that adds to the tension.
Michael, we just have to cut in. Thank you so much for joining us.